Ving, she said again, her voice a little louder this time, breaking through the polite, suffocating chatter around us. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest like a trapped bird. I didn't even think to argue. Emma stood up, pushing her chair back with a scrape that cut through the illusion of normalcy like a knife. The room went silent for a moment, all eyes on us. I murmured something about needing to leave early and made apologies that no one really heard because they were too busy trying to read the tension in the air. I felt the heat of my sister's gaze, but I didn't meet it. I couldn't. We'd left without looking back, the weight of that little piece of paper heavier than any of us could have imagined. Emma was silent in the car, her hands gripping the steering wheel with a white-knuckled intensity. I watched her, my mind racing with possibilities, each one worse than the last. "Emma," I said, softly, trying to break the silence that felt like it was pressing down on us from all sides. She didn't respond at first, just kept her eyes fixed on the road. Then, finally she spoke, her voice flat and controlled. "It was a note," she said, "under the table from Aunt Karen." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What did it say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma glanced at me, her eyes dark with something I couldn't quite place. "It was just one word," she said. "Help." We drove home in silence, the word echoing in my mind like a siren. Help. What could Karen possibly need help with? I thought about her sitting there at the head of the table, surrounded by the trappings of our family's carefully curated life, and I realized how little I truly knew about her. We were sisters, but we were strangers, living in parallel worlds that rarely intersected. I felt a pang of guilt, sharp and unexpected. Had I missed the signs? Had I been too wrapped up in my own life to see hers falling apart? When we got home, Emma went straight to her room and closed the door. I stood in the hallway, feeling helpless and adrift. I wanted to reach out to her to comfort her, but I didn't know how. Instead, I went to the kitchen, my mind spinning with questions and fears. What if Karen was in real trouble? What if we'd left her there when she needed us most? I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd stepped into something much bigger than ourselves, something dark and dangerous that we couldn't fully understand. I spent the next few hours pacing the house, checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for a call or a text that might bring some clarity. But the phone stayed silent, and with each passing minute, the knot in my stomach tightened. I thought about calling my parents, asking them if they'd noticed anything strange, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to raise alarms, not yet, not until I knew more. Finally, just when I thought I couldn't take the waiting any longer, the phone rang. It was my mother, her voice high and tight with panic. "She's been arrested," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Karen's been arrested." I felt my heart stop, the world narrowing down to those 3 words. "What happened?" I asked, my voice shaking. My mother took a shaky breath. "The police showed up right after you left," she said. "They said she was involved in something illegal. I don't know all the details, but it's bad, really bad." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Arrested. Karen, my sister, the golden child, the one who always seemed so untouchable. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. "What do we do?" I asked, feeling more lost than ever. My mother's voice trembled. "I don't know," she said. "I just don't know." We hung up, and I stood there in the kitchen, the silence pressing in on me from all sides. I felt a mix of emotions, shock, fear, confusion, but most of all, I felt a deep, aching sense of loss. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew that nothing would ever be the same. I remember that evening vividly. We were at my parents' house, and the tension in the air was almost suffocating. My wife and I exchanged looks, silently agreeing that it was time to leave. We made up some excuse, something about an emergency, a headache, an early start the next day. It didn't matter what it was as long as it got us out of there. My parents raised their eyebrows but didn't press further. Karen, my sister, didn't even bother looking up. We left within minutes, and it felt like a weight had been lifted the moment we stepped outside. In the car, the silence was heavy. I finally asked Emma what had happened. She didn't respond immediately, just stared out the window, as if expecting something to shatter before her eyes. Eventually, she handed me a piece of paper. I read it out loud without thinking. River Plant 573. It seemed like nonsense, like the kind of thing that makes sense in a dream but evaporates upon waking. My stomach turned. I could feel Emma's distress even though she was silent. I tried to keep my voice steady as I asked her what it was. She finally answered, softly, that it was her password. I was stunned. How could this be? I asked her again, and she repeated it, her voice full of dread. The air in the car felt thicker, my heart pounded in my chest. I asked if she had written it down anywhere, or told anyone. She hadn't. Then she said, with a voice tinged with disbelief, that it was written in her grandmother's handwriting. I looked again, and it was unmistakable. My mother's handwriting. The same messy loops I had seen on birthday cards and grocery lists. Now, somehow, on a piece of paper with my daughter's password. I didn't know what to say. Emma continued, explaining that she never wrote it down, always remembered it in her head. They must have watched her type it, or maybe they used a camera. My brain was scrambling to find a different explanation, any explanation that wasn't leading to the conclusion I feared. I asked why they would do such a thing, my voice betraying my anxiety. Emma snapped back, her voice breaking, saying she didn't know, but she was determined to find out. When we got home, Emma went straight to her work laptop. I watched from the hallway, trying not to intrude but feeling the urgency of the situation. She was focused, angry, terrified. She clicked through her files with precision until she froze. I didn't ask what she saw. Her silence spoke volumes. She finally said it was really bad and that she knew what they did. Then she was quiet, just sitting there, tears falling silently, as the screen glowed in front of her. I didn't press for details, but I felt like our world had been upended, like something dark and insidious had emerged, and now sat at the heart of our family. I sat in the kitchen watching Emma work at the table with her laptop's light casting a faint glow, almost like a warning. She hadn't said much since, just that she understood what had happened and that it was bad. I tried to piece things together in my mind, turning over every memory, every interaction, trying to understand how we got here. And then it hit me. This didn't start with Emma's password. It started with me, or at least my perception of everything being normal when I was growing up. As a child, I was the center of attention for the first few years. I was the serious baby, the one who asked too many questions. Then my sister Karen was born, and everything changed. Karen was the kind of baby who demanded attention, loud, always performing, carried into every room like she was the star of a show. At first, I didn't mind. Babies need attention, right? But it never stopped. I remember when she was 2 and pulled my hair so hard a clump came out. My mother excused it, saying she didn't know what she was doing. Then when she was 4, she broke my Etch-A sketch, and my father dismissed it as just a toy. These moments seemed small, insignificant even, but they added up. They painted a picture of a family dynamic that was always skewed in her favor, whether intentional or not. I still remember the day when it all began to unravel, the day I got hit in the face with a plastic truck. My lips split open, and the taste of blood mixed with the familiar scent of Play-Doh. My dad tried to explain it away, saying, "Girls don't always know how to handle their energy." It was a peculiar way to frame it, almost as if it was my fault. They asked me what I had done to upset her. Even then, I knew the unspoken rule. Good kids stay calm, they set the example. So I didn't hit her back. But there was one time I couldn't hold it in. She was chasing me around the living room with a wooden spoon, and when she smacked the back of my arm, leaving a welt, I reacted without thinking. I slapped her shoulder. It wasn't anger, more like a reflex, For that, they grounded me for 2 weeks. My mother told me, being older, I should have known better. That night, Karen got pizza and I was sent to my room. That was the first crack in the story I'd always believed about my family. As time went on, nothing changed. Karen got older, but the tantrums remained. The outbursts, the slamming doors, the way the whole house seemed to revolve around her moods. She yelled at teachers, broke things, got into fights. My parents always had an excuse ready. The kids were too rough, the teachers didn't understand girls. The school had it out for her. She needed space, patience, everyone to orbit around her. Meanwhile, I did my homework, cleared the table, kept my voice down, stayed out of the way. Over time, I stopped expecting any praise. I stopped trying to be noticed. They never hit me. They fed me, drove me to school, took my picture on the first day of 3rd grade. But still, the center of everything was always Karen. Despite all this, I didn't see what was coming. Karen got married in her 20s to Mark. He was smart, quiet, the kind of man who observed everything and only spoke when necessary. I liked him. They had a son, a sweet boy with big eyes and a shy smile. My daughter Emma used to babysit him when she was in high school. She'd read him stories and let him win at Uno. For a while, everything seemed okay. Then one day, Mark was gone. No dramatic scene, no voicemail, no note left on the kitchen table. He left with their son in the middle of the night and didn't come back. It took a few days for the truth to catch up with us. Divorce, custody battles, a restraining order. Mark said Karen had been hitting him for a long time, that he was scared. I'm supposed to say I was shocked, that I couldn't believe it, but I could. I didn't want to, but I could. Mark never struck me as the type to make things up. And Karen, well, I knew her long before the excuses and justifications. The signs were always there, but in my family we didn't talk about them. My parents blamed Mark, called him manipulative, accused him of brainwashing their grandson, claimed he was turning the courts against Karen. My sister moved back in with them for a while, slept in her old room. Mom made her tea, Dad sat on the porch with her, lamenting about how men these days don't appreciate a good woman. I didn't cut them off completely, still went to family dinners every other Saturday, but I didn't stay any longer than necessary. Emma, though, she kept visiting. They were extra nice to her, and I thought maybe they were trying to make up for what they hadn't been with me. They set up a little office for her upstairs, told her she could work there anytime. She works in a hybrid model, some days at the office, some at home. We just want to see you more, they said. You're always working. Why not work here? We'll feed you, take care of you. And they did, with lunches, coffee, groceries, kindness. They made her feel wanted, made her feel like she mattered. And now I sit across from her, watching her work under the glow of that laptop screen, and I can't stop thinking about it. That little room, the sandwich runs, we're so proud of you. Now that she's found that password, her work password, apparently written in my mother's handwriting, I keep replaying it in my mind, trying to make sense of everything. Every little detail, every instance they called me over, pretending it was just to see me, when in reality there was something deeper, something sinister that I didn't notice at the time. Neither did she. They kept her close, always inviting, always making it seem like a safe haven. But why? That's the question that haunts me. She never told me precisely what they did, only that it was bad, and knowing them like I do, I believed her instantly. It's like stepping into a trap that was set long before you even knew it existed. I remember Emma sitting at the kitchen table, her posture rigid, as if she hadn't moved for hours. Her laptop was open in front of her, the screen casting sharp shadows on her face like a flickering flame. She didn't let us near it, which was expected. Her work involves confidential files, cases of abuse and custody, things that people only whisper about in courthouse hallways. She's always been cautious. That night, she looked as if she were holding something toxic with her bare hands. I stood by the counter, rinsing a mug that didn't need it, my heart heavy with a sense of foreboding. Then she said, "They downloaded Mark's file." I remember my wife looking up, a question on her lips, though we both knew the answer. "Mark Fletcher, Karen's husband." Emma's voice was steady, but the weight of her words was undeniable. Someone accessed his case file using her login, downloaded it entirely. I felt a chill run through me. When did this happen? Yesterday, while she was out having lunch with her grandparents. She didn't need to convince me. The truth was evident in her eyes, in the way she checked the logs multiple times, seeing her user account tied to the downloads. She didn't need to show me the screen. I trusted her implicitly. "I didn't even know he was a client," she confessed. "I was never on his case. I never saw his name until tonight. If I had known, I would have said something." I moved to sit across from her, not for comfort, but to show solidarity. "They knew," she continued. "They knew he was a client. That's why they kept inviting me. They made it easy for me to work there." I reached out for her hand, but she withdrew, folding her hands in her lap as if she needed them both to bear the weight of what she was carrying. "Emma," I said softly, "you didn't do anything wrong." She shook her head slowly. "It doesn't matter. It looks like I did. My login, my laptop, and now it's connected to a sealed legal case I had no business being involved with." She closed the laptop gently, as if it might break. "If anyone sees this, I'm finished." I didn't try to offer solutions. I just sat there, silently supporting her. Then the phone rang. It was my mother, her voice a mix of panic and performance. Karen had been arrested, just like that, no warning. It was as if someone had abruptly dropped a lit match into my world. "What happened?" I asked, trying to process her words. "Mark called the police. She just wanted to see her son, but he twisted it. She went to his house, yes, but it was innocent. She brought toys. She just wanted to talk." Her voice wavered, and I could sense the desperation. "How did she get his address?" There was a pause, and then she said, "She found it." "How?" "I don't know. What matters is he called the police on his own wife." I swallowed hard, feeling the room close in around me. Emma had stepped into the hallway listening. "We need help," my mother added. "Bail's $2,000. We wouldn't ask, but it's Karen." "Of course, it's Karen." I told her I'd call back, ending the call before she could say more. Emma leaned against the doorframe, her expression unreadable. "They used it," she said, her voice firm. "The address from the file? You're sure?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Nobody had his address, not legally, and the day after someone uses my login to pull his file, she shows up at his door. It's too much of a coincidence." We decided not to handle it over the phone. Emma nodded in agreement. "They'll lie," I added, "unless we catch them off guard." So we went the next morning, before they had time to prepare. It was a Sunday, and everything about the visit felt surreal. The same house, the same driveway, the same doormat proclaiming that family is everything. But not today. My father opened the door, his expression expectant, like he was ready for brunch. My mother greeted us with a tired smile. Emma remained standing, tense and solid. "You stole my password," she accused. "You took me out for lunch so Karen could use my laptop." I remember the moment so clearly, like it happened just yesterday. I was standing right next to her, my heart pounding in my chest. My father stood there with his arms crossed, a look of disdain on his face. My mother seemed almost offended, as if we had accused her of being lazy or something. But Emma, she was calm, her voice steady. She explained how my mother had used her login, accessed a confidential file. Everything was tracked under Emma's name. My father, in his usual dismissive manner, said it wasn't Emma who looked at the file. I couldn't stay silent. I pointed out that it didn't matter who actually looked. Emma was the one who would be blamed. Emma just nodded, her eyes staring straight ahead. She explained how, at her firm, every action is logged, who accessed what and when. Someone had used her account to access a sealed case file, and now it appeared as if she had done it. My mother didn't seem to grasp the severity, asking if it really mattered. It mattered to Emma, though. It could jeopardize her job, her license, her future. My mother dismissed it, saying it was just a job, but for Emma, it was her life. Emma looked at them, reminding them of their expressed desire to see her more, to spend time with her. But it was never about family. It was about gaining access to her laptop. I felt a deep silence fill the room, a silence that was heavy and accusatory. My mother finally spoke, saying that I'd understand when I became a parent. I moved forward, reminding them that I already was a parent. We left without further words. In the car, the silence continued until I finally broke it, saying that they didn't care what would happen to Emma. She just looked out the window, her silence confirming what I already knew. They never did care. The next morning, Emma was up early. She came downstairs with her laptop and a folder, no makeup, no chit-chat. Her expression was calm but intense, the kind of look she gets when she's preparing for something significant, like an exam or an important meeting. She made herself some toast, but didn't eat it. My wife offered her a ride, but Emma shook her head, grabbed her bag, and left. I watched her drive away, holding the toast she left behind. She didn't have to say she was going to report them. I could sense it. The silence she left behind was louder than if she had yelled. That day, Emma returned home earlier than I anticipated. She looked exhausted, as if the day's events had taken a year off her life. Before I could ask, she told me she was on mandatory leave. She moved slowly, hanging up her coat, taking off her shoes, and heading to the sink for water. She seemed to be conserving her energy, moving deliberately. She explained that a formal investigation had been opened, that she had handed over everything: logs, timelines, receipts, location data. She stood there, holding her glass, staring at the wall in silence. She mentioned they would soon reach out to Grandma and Grandpa. I nodded, feeling unable to say anything. She finally sat down at the kitchen table, her laptop still in her bag, untouched. She didn't look scared, just tired, like someone in the middle of a storm with no way to go back. I wanted to ask so much more about what was said, what might happen, but I held back, and she didn't volunteer any more information. That evening, Emma walked into the living room, laptop under one arm, phone in hand. She looked at me as if deciding whether I was ready to hear what she had to say. She said they were blaming her, that the firm had spoken to them, claiming she accessed the file herself and didn't report the conflict, insinuating she was trying to help my aunt. She gave a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, more of a bitter acknowledgement of the absurdity of the situation. They weren't just denying what happened. They were rewriting it. I asked if she had told the firm the truth, and she nodded. She said that while the firm wasn't foolish, they needed proof. I hesitated before asking if she had any. She raised an eyebrow, indicating that she did. Then she finally opened her laptop and sat on the floor, crossing her legs like she used to do as a child when doing homework. But now, she was preparing to confront the very people who had raised me, ready to drop a truth bomb that could change everything. I stayed silent, watching her, feeling a mix of pride and sadness, knowing there was no turning back from this. I remember the day it all started to unravel. I was sitting in my living room scrolling through my phone when Emma called. Her voice was steady, but had an edge that told me something was up. She mentioned she had a voice recording, something she hadn't planned on using but felt she needed to. I didn't know the details then, but I could sense the weight of what she was about to share. She opened her phone, found the recording, and hit play. Her voice came through, calm, but with an undercurrent of tension. She spoke about her password being stolen, how she had been taken out to lunch so that Karen could use her laptop. There was a pause, and then I heard her mother's voice, justifying the invasion of privacy as if it was no big deal. Her father's voice chimed in, cold and indifferent, placing the blame subtly on Emma. It was chilling to hear how easily they dismissed her boundaries. Emma paused the recording, saying that was enough. She attached the file to an email, not even bothering to add a message, just sending it off like she was submitting evidence. After that, she closed her laptop and sat there, motionless. It was as if she was absorbing the enormity of what had just happened. I knew Karen wouldn't stay in jail long. The next day, she was out on bail, back at home. It was like nothing had happened, and I imagined her family welcoming her back with open arms, pretending everything was normal. The same day, Mark filed for emergency full custody. Emma told me about it a few days later. Her voice was quiet, almost as if she was afraid to say it out loud, unsure of my reaction. The firm had conducted its own investigation and confirmed everything. The logs, the IP addresses, the timestamps. It was all indisputable. Emma was still on leave, but there was a resolve in her that hadn't been there before. She sat beside me on the couch, lost in thought, questioning whether she had done the right thing by reporting them. She felt like she had torn her family apart. I tried to reassure her, telling her it wasn't her doing. They made their choices. She mentioned their age, suggesting they didn't understand the implications of their actions. Maybe they did, I replied. Deep down, we both knew she had done the right thing, even if it felt like betrayal. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had taken a step in the right direction. The fallout was swift. Karen lost everything in court, Mark got full custody, and there was a permanent no-contact order in place. She couldn't even have supervised visitation. The judge flagged her file as high risk, with zero tolerance for any violation. If she even tried to reach out, she'd be in breach of the order. Meanwhile, she stayed at my parents' house, wallowing in self-pity, blaming the system for her problems. She was loud, bitter, and seemed to have no direction. My parents were no better off. Mark's lawyers filed a restraining order against them as well. It was a civil matter, but the order was permanent. No visits, no custody rights, no birthday cards, nothing. Their involvement in the breach was recorded in the court documents, marking them as hostile third parties. If they ever tried to petition for access again, they'd be stopped before the paperwork even left the printer. People started to notice the change, not through gossip, but through quiet understanding. A cousin stopped coming to family lunches. An old friend returned a Christmas card unopened. The damage wasn't loud, but it lingered. Emma's firm reinstated her after an internal review. They sent her an official letter, restoring her clean record and offering full support. She didn't tell anyone outside of work, didn't feel like celebrating. She just took her job back and moved on. But there was a distance now between her and those who chose to look the other way. I can't blame her for that. They haven't reached out to me since. I blocked their numbers after the court date, sending a brief message before doing so. It simply said not to contact Emma again, that they had lost that right. Then I deleted it before they could even read it. They didn't deserve any more of my time or energy. I stood in the kitchen, watching Emma work on her laptop from across the room. It was the same spot where all of this began, but now I saw her differently. I didn't feel sad or guilty anymore. I felt like it was over. They got what they wanted. They got her. But they don't get to have her anymore. Sometimes I still wonder if we went too far or not far enough, but deep down, I know we did what was necessary. If you have thoughts, feel free to share them.